This is a special presentation of the Arizona Law Channel, one of the newest members of the Legal Broadcast Network. On Thursday, with both engines out from a bird strike just after takeoff, a cool-headed pilot maneuvered his crowded U.S. Airways jetliner over New York City and ditched it in the frigid Hudson River. All 155 on board were pulled to safety as the plane slowly sank. My guest is Charles Brewer. His Arizona firm, Charles M. Brewer Limited, has specialized in personal injury law for the past 48 years, and his areas of expertise include all types of aviation law and litigation, and he is a jet-rated pilot himself. Hi, Charles.
Hello. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing fine. Well, the last domestic water crash I recall was the Air Florida crash, I think 27 years ago in the Potomac, and at that time I think there were only 5 survivors. From the layman point of view, yesterday's crash appears to be an absolute miracle. This, from a jet pilot's point of view like yourself, is it a miracle?
It wasn't a miracle. It was a super pilot with everything going right for him, and he did everything right, and everything was going for him. And had there not been a river there could have been hundreds or thousands of deaths if he'd landed in Manhattan. So it was a miracle the way things went, because everything went right for him. The weather was perfect. It was VFR weather. He could see. If he couldn't have seen, he couldn't have known what to do.
When I'm on a plane and they tell me that my seat cushion can be used as a flotation device, I normally just think, well, they're just telling me that to make me feel better, but planes don't really float anyway. This is surprising to me. I didn't think that this plane would remain in the water or above water for as long as it did.
Well, this is a super plane. It has a ditch switch, and my co-pilot flew this plane continuously for over 5 years, and he has over 4,000 hours in the plane. And the training is phenomenal. But they have a ditch switch, so it closes all of the orifices and all of the holes and all of the ways you take in air on the plane, so the plane will float. And it was in the checklist when he was going down. And if you have to ditch, you just look under D or under emergency, and it'll show D for ditch switch, and or D for water landing. You'll have a water landing, and then it'll say activate the ditch switch. And he activated the ditch switch, which kept the plane closed. Mm-hmm. And had they not opened certain things, it would have probably floated for a lot longer, but they had to get out.
How does a pilot keep a plane like that from breaking up, though, as it hits water?
Oh, this is where it comes in good. The pilot did a superior job, because normally you would belly a plane in, but the engines on this plane were below the wings. Instead of most jets, they're above the wings. On mine, for example, they're above the wings. And they were not on the fuselage. They're below the wings. So he did not want to hook an engine in the water. So he had to I haven't seen any TV on it. I haven't seen him land, but I'm sure he landed a little nose high, so he could belly the plane in and not hook one of those engines. Like if his landing gear was down, he would have cartwheeled. So he had wheels up, and he did a superior job of landing the plane. He just rolled it right on, and so the engines would not hook in the water. Mm-hmm. He bellied it in, and it was in a nice way.
What kind of control does he have over the aircraft when the engines are out?
He has literally no control after a few minutes, and that's what he lost his glide ratio. But what this aircraft is an electrical plane. It flies with a toggle switch like kids play video games with. It does not have wheel control. It has, in other words, you don't have a steering wheel like in most aircraft. You have a toggle switch in the left corner of the aircraft, and the pilot has to fly from there. You have a superior pilot with, I figured, approximately 35,000 hours, and they fly 800 hours a year, and he's been flying probably 30 years at least, and so he's about a 35,000-hour pilot, and he's got tremendous skills. So what he did was, when the electricity went out, because when you lose both engines, you lose all generators. When you lose all generators, you lose all electricity. The electricity runs the hydraulics to control the flight surfaces. Your turning surfaces, your banking, your climbing and descending. He still had all of that, because they have a very unique situation. They have a little propeller that pops out in the nose, on the right side of the nose, and it's called a ram air turbine. And this comes out and spins at terrific speed in order to create electricity. So he's making his own electricity as he's going down, and he also has some battery power left, but the plane is controlled by 5 computers, and these computers are going down. Now, one computer will control the turning surfaces, the ailerons, control various other things. Now, the rudder is separate, and he can control that at all times because it has its own servo. But the turning and banking and raising and lowering the plane is all done by electricity, because you have generators on 4 generators, and you have 2 engines, and when all 4 generators are gone, the hydraulics cannot be activated because it's too big a plane to hand fly. And so, as a consequence, he is using his ram air turbine, and he pulled that out immediately, or it popped out on its own volition. And then it creates enough electricity for him to see what he's going to do. And so that he looked around. He saw Teterboro over in New Jersey, but he would have had to cross the Hudson, cross some buildings, and come in. And Teterboro's a nice little airport, but it is tight, and it's small, and you only have one shot at it. And he was falling literally like a rock, because this airplane weighed 180 pounds. And it's an A320, it's an Airbus, and it's built at 212 pounds. And by the time he had the fuel and 150 passengers, and they figure him at 180 pounds a passenger, I figured 180 to 182 pounds. And so he's heavy, but not overly gross, which will take up to, I think, 200 pounds, 212 pounds. But here you have both engines out, no electricity. No electricity means no hydraulics, but he's still got a battery running, and he has this ram air turbine. So he's flying, probably, by the time he got to the water, that is propelling all of his surfaces, because he made what I saw, just a few things on late TV last night, was a beautiful landing.